What is good, everyone? Welcome to this video. I'm Charlie from Conscious Creation, and in this video I would like to share with you the secrets of the heart. Now this is ancient and sacred information, and on a deep level you already know this. Now I'm really excited to share this information because it has changed my life. Now I know that's a big statement, but as I go through this and it starts to make more sense to you, you can start to see the power in it. When you are first fertilized in your mother's womb, there's a point where you are just a beating heart. You have no arms, you have no legs, you have no brain. Now, this baffled doctors for a very long time because they were like, how can the heart beat by itself without a brain? Along comes the Heart Math Institute, and they figured out that the heart does have a brain. It has 40,000 of its own brain cells, which can be referred to as the heart's intelligence. Now here, I have my picture of the heart, and we are going to be talking about two very special places within the heart. There's something called the sacred space in your heart and the tiny space in your heart. And as I go through this, I'm going to explain the geometry behind this so it can start to make more sense to you. But your sacred space of the heart is unique to every single person. So you can learn to maneuver your awareness around your body. So if you hit your hand and your hand starts to tingle, where does your awareness go? It goes into your hand. You can learn to maneuver your awareness into different areas of your body. So if you close your eyes and you imagine yourself falling through your throat and into your chest, that is where your awareness starts to shift. You can then learn to shift it into that of your heart space and into these spaces. Now, it took me a long time to actually practicing this until I started to see anything. When you enter within the heart and into these special places, we'll start off talking about the sacred space of your heart. Now, the sacred space is unique to every single person. So if you manage to get into the heart, you will see a place that is unique to you. So for me, for example, when it first started to work for me, is I started to be in a cave. Now, within this sacred space of your heart is your Akashic record. So everything that is to know about you. Now, you can even tap into things like parallel lifetimes. And I know some of this information might seem a bit out there. And if you told me about this information before I actually experienced it, I would also think it not to be true as well. But you're going to have to find this out for yourself if this actually works. Within the sacred space of the heart, we have something called the tiny space of the heart. This is the same for everyone. This is one of the things I believe that connects everything and everyone together because it is the singularity. The brain is where we experience a duality, good, bad, wrong, right, in, out. We label things. Now, the singularity is there is no judgment. Everything just is, and it's an extremely peaceful place to be. Now, your heart produces something called a torus field. Now, this torus field comes out of your heart. It produces a smaller one and a larger one. Now, the smaller one can be referred to as the feminine. The larger one can be referred to as the masculine. Now, as this torus field comes into your heart, there's a fraction of a point where this torus field meets. That is the exact point of the tiny space of your heart. How can this connect us to everything else? Scientists have now figured out that this torus field runs through pretty much everything. The Earth, the Moon, galaxies, stars, atoms. So they all have this touching point. They all have this singularity. So when you start to do this and connect to your tiny space of the heart, it starts to dissolve the illusion of separation. And that's what allows you to start feeling more connected to the things around you. Drunvalo Melchizedek is the one who has brought this back into that of our society. He wrote the book, The Flower of Life, Volume 1 and 2, and also Living in the Heart, where a lot of this information comes from. In the time of Atlantis, as a collective, we were all connected to our heart, and our heart was connected back up to that of our mind. Now, in the Bible, it refers to that of the fall. Now, the fall being the sever of this connection from our heart to our mind, and then we started to live purely through that of the mind. And because of this, our ego started to grow. Now, the ego is not a bad thing, but because it started to grow, this grew the illusion of separation. You're probably asking, Charlie, how do you know about Atlantis? Now, truthfully, I don't know 100%. However, I have done a lot of research in this. Now, when you start to enter into the sacred space of your heart, you enter something called the Akashic Records. So everything there is to know about you is within this place. You know, your heart comes from a place of knowing things. It just knows. Have you ever even experienced a sense of pure knowing and you don't know where it came from? That's because it's coming from your heart. Now, these experiences of Atlantis and Egypt, places like that, comes from a place of remembering when I tap into my heart space. So I'm going to explain to you the geometry behind this so it can start to make a bit more practical sense to you. So we're going to start off talking about this image called the flower of life. The flower of life is very well known. It's come from many sacred spaces around that of the planet. Everything filters from the flower of life. Everything in our reality comes from this one image. Now, from the flower of life comes something called the fruit of life. From the fruit of life comes something called Metatron's cube. Now, within Metatron's cube, there are 5 platonic solids. There's the tetrahedron, there's the cube, there's the dodecahedron, there's the icosahedron, and the octahedron. Elements of our reality come from these platonic solids. They filter down in like a fractal nature, creating elements of our reality. So things like that of the periodic table come from these platonic solids. Now, the really interesting thing is if you look closely at Metatron's cube, you can see that there's a large platonic solid and then there's a smaller platonic solid. So let's take the cube, for example. There's a large cube and a smaller cube. There's a large octahedron and a smaller octahedron. Now, the really interesting point is the proportions used in Metatron's cube are the exact same proportions in that of the torus field created by the heart. So it's actually the geometry from Metatron's cube that is creating the pattern of the torus field. And it's also this pattern of the smaller and the larger that creates these special places in the heart. That of the sacred space being the larger and the smaller part being that of the tiny space, which is incredible. If you've got your sternum, under your sternum, you've got something called your upper heart chakra. Now, your upper heart chakra is connected to your brain, and it's what most people live through. Most people's relationships, loving relationships, are based on conditions. You know, I love you under a certain condition. They need to look a certain way. And if one doesn't meet these conditions, we can end up falling out of love with them. Or you can say, oh, I love this person, and then they say something to offend you, and then you suddenly hate them. This is all part of the polarity, all part of the duality, and it's all conditioned. 4 fingers below your sternum is something called your lower heart chakra. Now, your lower heart chakra is connected to the sacred space of your heart. Now, if you manage to get into the sacred space of your heart, because it connects to this lower heart chakra, it connects you to universal love, so unconditional. An example of this unconditional love would be if a mother has a baby and she holds her baby for the first time, she will hold unconditional love for that baby. When you start to enter into this sacred space now, you might not be having these feelings, but you will start to feel more of this connectedness, this universal connectedness in all things. When it comes to maneuvering your awareness into your heart, if you are holding a lot of trauma or unhealed aspects within your energy field or within your body, is when you try to do this, you kind of get this pulling feeling away from the heart. So it's really important to look at that and maybe get someone to help you to heal these parts first, and then you'll find this work a lot easier to do. On top of that, in order to enter into the heart space, you need to be in a certain vibration. Now, from my experience of just doing this for quite a bit of time now, I found just sinking into the feeling of peace is a vibration that allows you into that of the heart. But a yogic master named Sri Yukteswar came up with this certain meditation that allows you to get into the exact vibration to maneuver into your heart space. What you need to do is you need to feel love for Mother Earth. So Mother Earth is a part of us and you need to feel love for her. You then need to feel love for Father Sky. Father Sky can refer to the sun, it can refer to all other creation, and you need to start feeling love for all other creation. And when you start to realize this connectedness, this becomes a lot easier. And this is actually where the Holy Trinity comes from, because you being the child, the mother, the father, you being the child, this is the Holy Trinity. If you get into this certain feeling within the body, this allows you to enter into these sacred spaces of the heart. Like I said, if you manage to get into these places, is you almost, we could say, you win the game of life. Now, the reason I say that is because when you enter these spaces, you start to connect to higher aspects of yourself. You can connect to your higher self, your multi-dimensional self. Now, if this is the first time that you're hearing this information, this again might sound a little bit crazy. So we'll just say your intuition or your impulses start to increase. That gets a lot stronger when you start to enter these spaces. So you function from a place of less fear and more security within yourself, and you enter into things like the unknown that we would find fearful, but we actually find them much more enjoyable because we're connected to these parts of ourselves that are actually guiding us, and we know that they have our best interest at heart. Thank you for watching. I will put a free meditation below that can help you with the process of connecting your heart and even connecting your heart back up to your brain if you want to give it a go. Apart from that, peace and take care.